Our job is to make sure that we respect. We've got the easiest part, so we need to respect what the farmer and producer have given us. They've done the hard part. They've had to deal with the weather. They've had to deal with everything else. We've got the easy part. We just need to respect it.
This is The Crackling. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Growing up in a family with a rich Southern Italian ancestry, Danny Russo always had a wonderful connection to food. And at the heart of much of what they did was a celebration of the whole pig and using every part of it. So when he embarked on a career as a chef, the pig underpinned much of his culinary journey. Danny, your family originally from Basilicata in Italy. How important is the pig to the food of Basilicata?
Well, one of the most important parts is that the pig, or the pork down south, is fundamentally an asset for the farming families. And you've always got to remember is that down south, obviously being a little bit of the poorer part of the nation, there were a lot of farmers. Agriculture was huge, and that's why they paid and always respected, the pig, because with the pig, nothing goes to waste. We need to remember that the reason why there are so many great pork products is because there are so many good parts to the pig, which is always one of the most important parts. And when we talk about paying homage to an animal, the most important part is that you need to understand it's literally from nose to tail, because we use it in the starters, we use it in the cured meats, smoked meats, we use the blood to make, whether it's a sausage or a dessert, we use the intestines for all the casings, we do use the meat, we use the bones, we also use the fat as well, which is really important, because we use the fat not only for the preserving part of things, but also they use it in the pastry. And this is one of the most important parts. I mean, strutto is every baker's, every pastry chef's dream. And that's, you make a pastry, for example, you use the sfogliatelle napoletana, and you use the pastry, you use the strutto for the pastry. And there's nothing like it. I mean, it's absolutely out of this world, and the flavors are just on the next level. Hence, when people talk about paying homage to the pig or to the pork, people need to understand the history behind it all. And you've got to go back. I mean, it's not just the Italians, but also through Asian culture, the Dutch, European. It is just unbelievable the amount of obviously, there are a couple of cultures because of the religion that don't use pork, but pretty much everyone else, the way they use pork is just, and don't forget the Dutch, have a bit of a saying, just like the Italians, is that pigs root forward. So it's also it brings them a lot of luck in a lot of cultures. I mean, when you look at the history and you look at and understand what it's all about, you've got to bring into it the fact that, for example, in Italy, especially in Rome or down south, one of the dishes that you have to celebrate coming into the new year is the zamponi alla romana, which basically the lentils, symbolic to the ancient Roman coins that they used to have, which obviously means wealth, prosperity, and eating the meat, because don't forget, they always didn't kill the animals because they were such a prized possession and such a prized fundamental part of the family farming families that they only killed them on special occasions. So therefore, there was always having that zamponi. I mean, to me, that brings me back to when I worked in Rome. That was one of the first jobs they gave me. So oh man, that's another story. It was fantastic. So you got to remember, it was in the mid 90s. I was a young chef. coming out of London, well, first here in Australia, winning a few awards, which was fantastic. Then I went over to London, and like, most young chefs when they're in their mid to late 20s, think they're, God's gift to everything. And it wasn't until I went into Rome at Sabatini's, and it was around Christmas time when, we were doing the Zampone. So I remember the executive chef comes around, and my cousin also worked there, which was fantastic. So I thought I'm a hot shot chef, and I'll come in, I'll teach them a few things. What a big surprise that was. They said, see all those legs there? Mate, we need you to tunnel bone them, stuff them, sew them all up, and get them all ready. And I remember the first one took me about an hour. And then I was giving me, didn't I come back a few pegs, mate? It was amazing. By the time I finished my stint, I was able to debone, stuff, so put them all back together in 10 minutes. So it's something that's very close to my heart, simply because, coming from an Italian family, we used to make, especially for my parents and my auntie and uncles, when they were around, we used to make the salami and the prosciutto and all of this, and it was the whole experience about going out to the farm where the cousins were over in Orange and picking the pig that, they were going to feed and look after for the next several months. So therefore, by the time it came round to make the salami, mate, we were in heaven. It was amazing, because it was such an amazing day, and it was a great ritual in the sense that the whole family would be involved. All the stories, it was almost like the fish that got away, and as a young kid, you get to listen. And it was really, don't forget, going back, 40 odd years ago, 45 years ago, and we lived in a predominant area where there were a lot of Italians, Abbotsford, Five Dock, Leichhardt, Haberfield was full of Italians, so you didn't need to speak English. And everybody around Easter time was that, you were making salami that weekend because that was the beginning of the colder months. And so it was perfect. So all those, before they used to have all these, today they've got all the Mercedes and Lamborghinis and Ferraris in the garage. And many years ago, mate, it was all the salamis and prosciuttos ready, ready to be cured and aging, which was great. And but yeah, they're the things that are very important. So, in the south of Italy, it was obviously the vegetables, but it was more so the pig, which was really, really important. And they were very innovative all those years ago. To think about it, it's still, I tease my nephew, every year because, he loves eating Nonna's, chocolate cake that she makes around Easter time. I go, mate, why does Nonna only make this special chocolate cake when we make the salami? Because a tradition for down south is that we have the pizza dolce, which is chocolate and mixed with pig's blood. And prior to the chocolate being introduced in the 18th century, prior to that, they used to use molasses. Yeah, so it goes back. Every dish, there's a story, there's history. It's very important that you need to understand all of these things. It's not a matter of, okay, let's have, just a pork steak on the plate. There's a whole history. We're talking thousands of years, and even prior to that, understanding that before the chocolate, there was molasses, before molasses. And this is what, so therefore the pig, especially for the Southern Italians, is very important. And because of being fortunate enough to travel the world through work and everything else, having spent a lot of time in China, in Korea, they use a lot of pigs, and again, there's nothing that goes to waste, absolutely nothing. And that is one of the best things about it, is that, when people say they pay respect to the pig, they really do. And you can see it in people's cooking.
You've had an amazing career as a chef, which we'll get into, but what lured you to a career as a chef?
Well, mate, it was very, very early on. In our family, there's two parts. Either you're in restaurants or you're a builder. I mean, I can't change a light bulb to save my life, you know. So, and plus, you know, working with my dad, who was the builder, it was hard work. Whereas my mum was always feeding me; she was always in the kitchen, which was fantastic, and that's something that I loved. And it just came out naturally. One of the things that when I was at school, you know, and I was, you know, early on, you know, obviously like most boys going back 40 or so years ago, you know, you would do the paper run, you know, and then you matured and you started working in the restaurants. And my first job, because my auntie was a fantastic chef, she used to work at some very good restaurants in Sydney. One of them was called La Rustica in Leichhardt, and the other one was La Strada in Potts Point. So she was one of the chefs. And because she was such a fantastic, I used to go and work with her. And, you know, being a kitchen hand at the age of 9, you get to learn. And that's something that I really enjoyed. And then getting to learn to make pizzas and the bread and all of that. So for me, it became a way of life. Go to school, play soccer. You know, I always wanted to play for Man United, but it unfortunately, the body was telling me otherwise, mate. So I'm still one of the best, you know, couch managers in the world. My teams never lose. But the passion and the love for food is something that you can't read from a book. People can't tell you to go do this. It's actually got to come out naturally, and it's not even a way. It's a way of life. It's not a lifestyle. A lifestyle, you go purchase everything, whereas a way of life, you know. I'll never forget, you know, on the drive up to Orange to go get the pigs from my cousin's farm, we would, you know, stop over at Oberon in the mountains and all that to go pick up pine mushrooms. You know, so it was always in the family to do all of these things. So it was just the lead up, going up to the farm, visiting your cousins, getting the pig, bringing him back. I always thought that, you know, everybody had, you know, pigs in their garage at Easter time, and everyone used to make the wine and the tomatoes and all of this. So, you know, these are all the memories that, you know, I'm just remembering them now. I'm thinking, my God, no wonder I never had the opportunity to have a six-pack, because my mum and my auntie were absolutely fantastic cooks. So, you know.
What were the really important sort of venues and influences on you as you started your career? What sort of kitchens had a big impact on you?
Well, look, I did my apprenticeship going back quite a few years ago. I was over at Merivale's. That's where I started my apprenticeship, and I had two very good chefs. One of them, his name was Todd Finnegan. He was the master with people management skills. I knew that. The one thing that I always knew about the flavours and how to cook and all of this, because, you know, you just been brought up, you know, making fresh pasta when you were a kid, or how to make the salami, or how to do all of these things. Deboning was something that came out. I was always had the opportunities to see it, so you always get to learn. But in a kitchen, in a professional environment, it's very important that you learn people management skills. The other one was also, you know, which was very important, was David Kuma, who's in WA, he does all the truffles. And what he had was, he introduced me to a lot of the balance of flavours and the palate, especially in the Asian flavours. It's something that was quite new and quite, you know, I wasn't really into it. But the one that was really inspirational and made everything really come together, not only from the personal side of where you need to cook from the heart and making sure that, you know, the food was number one, but also, believe it or not, was actually Mr. John. He had a vision and a foresight that was second to none. I've never met anyone like him, and I've travelled quite a lot. His vision for the industry, this is going back in early 90s, was, you know, still today people haven't even reached half of what he used to think about back then. So I was very fortunate. So I had a very good foundation, a very good start. And then from there, I teamed up with Manny Spinola and we did Misto. And Misto was something that was quite interesting because it was the first of its kind in being a cafe, a general store, and a restaurant underneath an apartment building. And again, it was just something that was quite unique and something that you couldn't be compared to. One of the things that I always say to people is that, when people ask me, it's like, yes, I believe in build and they will come, but give them a reason to come. You've got to be something that is quite unique. It's almost like, almost like New York. It's got to be very exciting for the first time you go, but it's also got to be equally as exciting for the person who's been there half a dozen or 2 dozen times. And that's when you're working in a good establishment or you're part of an amazing establishment. And from there, I had the opportunity to go overseas. Worked in London with Gary Rhodes, which was, again, I always did Italian food, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different in the sense that I wanted to learn a bit of French, a bit of English, and getting to know how the kitchens over there operate. Gary Rhodes was ahead of his time, and I used to love his philosophy and the way he did things. Unfortunately, he passed away, but he really did put English local food back on the map because it was all about the produce. And that to me is the most important part. But also, not only do you learn about the produce, but you also learn about, how does the customer relate to this produce? It all goes back because if every dish has a story, then all of a sudden the customer feels comfortable and that they want to come back, once or twice a week. And that's our goal in the restaurants, for the customers to come back to your restaurant once or twice a week and not just use it as a special occasion place. So, from there, came back and I said, I ended up being a partner at L'Unico in Balmain, which is where everything started for me. And that's where I brought over the first dish I put on the menu, I'll never forget, was actually the zampone alla romana. So you would have thought I had enough of it, but it just had such a great, it's always got a soft spot in my heart. There's no two ways about it because it brings back so many great memories, and it really and truly is respecting the beast from the ground up. And literally that's where they start, with the hoofs, the trotter. It's paramount. And then you work your way up.
Tell us about L'Unico. That's where you sort of started to make a name for yourself and won chef's hats and really sort of put that restaurant on the map in Balmain. Do you have any stories from that time and what it was like receiving that attention?
We had a lot of fun. It was absolute fun. I had the pleasure of working with some really good chefs who were still very good friends. The thing was that it really stamped what I wanted to do, which was I just wanted to do timeless food but not trendy. It needed to be, Italian in spirit and technique, but, with an extended pantry list. And that's something that I've, taken on a journey all the way through. I did it at the Beresford and, looking at doing it at a couple of other places. But one of the most important parts is that, I really got to understand what the true meaning of modern Italian food is, which is basically all about the ingredients. It's all about still the flavors, still the integrity of the dish. It's just different cooking techniques, because don't forget, if they had combi ovens 500 years ago, maybe some of the recipes would be a little bit different if they had the sous vide 500 years ago. So these are all the things, but the flavor, the integrity of the dish, the spirit, and it has to be there. But we also got to understand is that, and that's where we set up Cheetah, and it was great having the likes of, Giovanni Pilu and having Luigi Armando there, who was always, he is great, because what he did was he kept everyone in line. He used to keep all of us in line, which was fantastic. And you need, as many disagreements I had with him, the best part was that no matter what, every week we'd be at his restaurant having a glass of wine, trying to solve the world's problems, and we'd still be mates and get invited to come back the week after, which was fantastic. So it's important yes, you can voice your opinion, but also you can agree to disagree, but also respect the other person's way of thinking, which is paramount, because that's what makes the world go round.
You're involved in some restaurants like Los Studio and the Beresford, which were, new builds and groundbreaking sort of venues, and really pushing that modern Italian message through your cooking. How do you see the Italian scene now? It's evolved so much. What's your feeling about it?
Well, look, I think it's in a very good place, but it's almost on a knife's edge of being going to that next level. I honestly believe that some of the Italian food that we do here in Australia, and not just in Sydney, but I'm talking about in Australia, is better than some of the Italian restaurants that there are overseas. And the reason being, and I say that, I'm very proud to say it. Look, some people might disagree. Yeah, no problem in the world. I get all of that. But we have some amazing chefs here. I spend a lot of time overseas, but you know what? I really enjoy coming back home because I know it's far and few in between as to where I get bad Italian food. Some of our pizzas are bloody amazing. The pastas are amazing. The one thing that Australia has pretty much taught a lot of other people around the world is that you actually don't need to be Italian to cook great Italian food. And that is one of the biggest key factors that everyone needs to understand, because we are cooking back to its roots. We have some of the guys, look at some of the Italian restaurants that we've got here in Sydney and in Melbourne. Some of them aren't even run by Italians. So that just tells you that we are in a very good place, from where it used to be, pasta with the pink sauce and overcooked and everything else, to what we are doing now. Look at them. We've got restaurants that just specialise in doing pasta. Who would have thought that 40 years ago? So that tells me we're in a good place. Like I said, some might agree, some may disagree, but through my eyes, and I do a lot of travelling, and I think that we've got some of the best Italian food, consistent, in the coffee, consistent in the food. Our service every now and then is a little bit how you going, but the products, both in seafood, the meat, the vegetables, the cheeses, well, I don't think you can beat. The only thing that we don't have for us, or that works against us, is that we don't have the Colosseum. Okay, we're still young. We're not thousands of years old. We're only a couple of 100 years old. But give it time. We're in a great place. And I see. I just believe that it's only going to get better. And I strongly believe that.
It's hard to keep up with all of the projects that you're involved with these days. Tell us a bit about what you're doing and some of the projects and where they take you around the globe.
Well, look, I've been very fortunate. With the Russolini Group, which is a consulting company, after the Beresford, one of the best things that came out of the Beresford, several amazing things came out of the Beresford. One of them was that I got to travel with the owners of the Beresford, especially because it was very much a New York inspired place. So we got to travel. And one of the things that it did also was that it put me on the map on an international stage, which was great. So therefore I was getting calls. I did a lot of work over in India, Korea, in China, and you just get it's just amazing. To think that, a boy from Sydney would get called up to open up these places in these foreign countries, and they want our food, is because it made me realise that, Australians are extremely well respected. We're hard workers. We look at things in a different way compared to the rest of the world. And, I've done master classes over in Italy, and, they just think we're a little bit mad because of the way we approach things, because it's the way things used to be done before. It's old school. So we respect the recipes, we respect the produce, we look at things in a totally different manner. Because when we talk about Australia being a melting pot, I look at it more as a minestrone. We've got so many good things into this place, so why not export some of those things over there? I mean, the first time I was over in the States, going back in 2020, just before the lockdown, and one of the things that I did was I actually, talking about the pig, I actually did for the first time the pork short rib, similar to the beef short rib, and that's something that, you know, we came back here not long ago. I had to do a bit of a photo shoot, and I started talking to Michael from Haverick Meats, and I said, mate, I want to do this pork short rib, and he started talking to me like, you mean the beef short rib? I said, no, it's like the beef short rib, but it's only pork short rib, and it's amazing. And so, again, you need to be, as a chef, you know, it's always good to do the pork belly and all that, and I get that. But like I was saying in the beginning, is that there are so many good parts to the pig. Why just why narrow it just to one or two? Have a look at everything. And we've been doing this, you know, we do this, we do the pork tomahawk. These are all the things that I absolutely love, because it also gets the producers excited, it gets the butchers excited, it gets the customer excited. I mean, you know, really, do you want a Vegemite and cheese panini, or do you want a porchetta in cime dell'ape panini? That's, you know.
Your job takes you all over the world these days. What's the most interesting project that you've worked on around the globe?
Around the globe, look, that's a very interesting question. I mean, we did one over in China with EJ called the Locksmith. And that was really exciting because we're in Fujian, which is great. We're in the middle of nowhere, having to learn a new language, getting to know what it was all about. I mean, we got into a taxi once, and I remember it took us about 2 hours. And I'm telling you, mate, to go from one part of China to the other. And I'm telling you, we went around the same block about 20 times, you know. But so you did get to learn. I mean, Korea was amazing. You know, India, again, you know, with my Indian brother Kuma, who's an absolute champion. So we did a lot of work down in Chennai, which is down south. And, you know, we set up an Italian restaurant over there in one of the hotels in the ITC Sheraton. And it was, again, you know, you embrace other cultures. You embrace different ways of life. And if you don't, life would be very boring. But this way here, you get to learn, you get to understand, and you get to know what it's all about. You know, is it something that, you know, you can read from a textbook and tell you, hey, listen, when you go to these countries, this is what you need to do? No, you need to learn all of this. You need to go over there and experience it firsthand. And, you know, some of the difficulties that you're faced with, I mean, you know, like especially in China, it's a completely different world to the rest. However, no point in getting angry about it. One of the things in the hospitality industry is that you need to be adaptable. You need to be like an elastic, know when to expand and when to contract. And they're the things that you just, you know, you forever learn. You learn the other customs. When you're in Korea, you'll get to understand that the Italian cuisine over there is huge. And they're producing beautiful food, amazing food, you know. And it just reminded me of, like, you know, when I was working at Sabatini's in Rome, half of the kitchen there were from either Korea or Japan. So it tells me that, you know, they actually understand and know what it's all about. I mean, the boys over there were swearing in the Roman dialect, which was fantastic. So they've really embraced it. They just took it to the next level. So, and the thing is that, you know, it's like we do a lot of clubs and we do a lot of pubs, which is great. You know, like, for example, we do the Oaks Hotel in New York. And, you know, been doing it now for a number of years. And the beauty about it is that we're forever evolving, forever changing, making sure, having a look, seeing what it's all about. And we talk about it's a timeless place. It's never been trendy. But now you've got, you know, third generation customers there. So that tells you people feel comfortable. They know that it's going to be very good food. I mean, for example, we put on that pork tomahawk over there, and it's done extremely well. And again, you know, if you had put that on a menu many years ago, I always believe that pork steaks, pork tomahawk should be on, your menu, right next to your ribeye and your Scotch fillets and your eye fillets and sirloins, because that's how much I believe in it, and I think it is such a versatile piece of meat. It's so beautiful, the flavours. So,
well, let's talk about a couple of cuts. What are some cuts that you love of the pig, and can you tell us how you best prepare them?
Oh, look, that's very simple. To me, like I said to you, I mean, it's not really a cut, but the trotter is one because it's got special memories for me, which is fantastic. The other one is definitely the pork tomahawk, because it was something that you don't see on many menus, something that we try to develop a little while ago, and it's something that I've been pushing because it is a beautiful piece of meat. It is just really and truly is. One of the things that I've always said is that, and I always tell the boys in the kitchen is that all these cuts of meat, they deserve to be on, the menu. And it's really important. But you don't just put it down the bottom. You've got to put it where the steaks are. Why? Because it belongs there. And it's paramount that people understand that. There's nothing wrong with having a beautiful pork neck fillet. It's just sensational, 300 grams, easy to cook. And the best part is it's just got great flavours. I mean, doing that, the pork short rib for me, that we did just not long ago is innovative. It's interesting. It's got beautiful flavours, easy to cook. But more importantly is that it's just great value. The flavours, are just so juicy and tender. It's exactly what you want. You know that when you put on the menu, you're not going to have an issue. It's just a given that it is an absolute beautiful piece of meat, full stop, whichever way you want to do it.
Pork belly is on menus right across the country, and it's quite common these days. But way back when it became popular, you were renowned for your pork belly dish. Do you want to tell us the best way that you cook pork belly?
Oh, look, one of the ways that I love doing the pork belly is obviously, you marinate it and then you steam it for about 8 hours at 85 degrees. But one of the things that I love doing now is not only do it like that, but we also we smoke it, so you get these beautiful flavors. So you steam it, then you put all your spices on it, then you smoke it, and the flavors that you get are just absolutely. Because what happens is that so far the belly has gone like jelly, which is fantastic. You put some spices on it, and then it just starts to, all those spices and flavors start to combine and develop. And then next thing you know, all the way through from start to finish, get all those sensational flavors. And then when you give it a quick roast right at the end, it's just, it's just excitement in your mouth. And they're the things that I just love doing, because it's, you're just playing with their techniques, It's just like when you do, the porchetta, you do something like that. It's all about the flavour. Then you start to muck around with the techniques. That's where you can play. That's being modern, So you add in just another layer, another dimension of flavour. And that to me is one of the most important parts. By you doing that, next thing you know, you've just got a burst of flavour that just continues from start to finish. So they're the things that I love. Plus, obviously the ribs are fantastic. But, to me, if I get the opportunity, I love doing the costoletta milanese, but done with pork. And, double cutlet, bashed out. Oh, you just, pan fry with, olive oil, a little bit of butter. Oh, it's so good for you, mate. I think that's going to be my dinner tonight. So,
Your job takes you all over the world at the moment and has you doing all these sort of different things. What do you love about what you do?
What I love is that, you get to meet so many different people and they're all interesting, which is great. But you're also working with a lot of different chefs from all around the world. I think one of the things that is It's just not one-dimensional, which is fantastic. So, I do a lot of work down in Canberra, and one of the things that I love about Canberra is that, on Saturdays there's the markets just up the road, and I really enjoy it when you go to the showground, you go to the markets there, get to see what it's all about. There's a place there that does a great bacon and egg roll. And I'm talking a really good, because they use a good slab of bacon. It's not thin, it's nice and thick. And that's exactly what you're looking for at 7 o'clock in the morning. It's really good for the arteries. But, they do good coffee. But the thing is that you become aware of what it's all about. Because one of the things that's really important is that you can't cook with your blinkers on. You need to see what it's all about. We talk about the pantry list. Well, every time you go to the shop, every time you go to a market, every time you go to all these places, you increase your pantry list, which is the most important, because you might not use it today, you'll use it tomorrow. But it's always, you're coming up with ideas, and these are all the things that are really, really important. So that's what we're doing. Like, for example, the one down in Canberra at Marble and Grain, we're starting to do a little bit of dry aging pork, and that to me is fantastic. And why? Because, once you start to dry age pork, it's just like when you dry age other meats. But what it does, it really starts to intensify, the flavors. It's still juicy, it's still tender, it's still got everything that you want, but it just takes it to a whole new level. So, and one of the things that's also paramount for me is, we've actually gone out and spoken to the farmers. So one of the farmers that that looks after us, they're over in Hall, which is not far. It's only a half an hour drive from Canberra, on the way to Yass. And, when you're talking about paddock to plate, right, that's a bloody good paddock to have. Some people say paddock to plate and their paddock is about 1,000 k's away. Well, I can understand their definition is a little bit different to mine, But yeah, and this is, you get the opportunity to do all of these things, and that's, for me, really important. So every venue, every place that we go to, and it's not just, here in Australia, but, when we're traveling, whether it's India or it's Korea or China, you get to see all these places, you get to meet all these different suppliers and farmers, and, you look at their hands and look at what they've done and what they've been able to produce. And it is just unbelievable, because you get these produce, you get inspired, you get back to the kitchen. And this is what we do. Our job is to make sure that we respect. We've got the easiest part. So we need to respect what the farmer and producer have given us. They've done the hard part. They've had to deal with the weather. They've had to deal with everything else. We've got the easy part. We just need to respect it. And if you can understand that, that's where it goes around the world.
Well, Danny, look forward to seeing what you do next. It's an absolute honour to have you on the Crackling today to hear just a little bit of your story. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you very much for having me on your program, Anthony, and very important. Congratulations on the great work you are doing for the industry by opening up relevant discussions and raising awareness. I mean, this is exactly what was required 30 to 40 years ago for all the young chefs, for our industry. And believe it or not, this is groundbreaking. And if we had this 40 odd years ago, the industry probably wouldn't be in the mess that it's in today. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you on, Danny. We appreciate your words too. Keep in touch, and we'll catch up soon.
Speak soon.
This is The Crackling, a Deep in the Weeds production in partnership with PorkStar. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we catch up with some of Australia's best chefs and pork producers to discover what makes Australian pork so special.